That's the one. No problem. Hey, everybody. While we work on getting set up, just check out this slide, follow the instructions. If you hit any snags, I'll be walking around to help people out. Are you good to go? Or do you need another minute? All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming today. It's my pleasure to introduce Felipe Montoya. He's the CTO of EdgeNext. He's a prolific contributor to the platform, and he's one of the first core contributors to the platform. Today, he's going to be talking about the hooks framework and teaching us how to use it. Let's give a round of applause for Felipe.
Hello. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, so let's see if we can get this working. Sorry if I'm like giving my back to you guys, but I wanted to see what I'm sharing with the screen. I leave this here, right? I hope. So first thing first, I put this slide, which is like, I want to give some context before this slide comes up, but if you want to get the tutor dev started, you can do so with those instructions. We'll go through them in a minute. The idea is that this runs while I give out some context, and by the time we are actually writing code, you get to, you have the tutor environment running already. Here, what we're doing is we're installing TVM, a tutor version manager, which makes it helps you get a different copy of tutor and a different environment for all the projects you're working on, kind of like pip, but for tutor. Then we'll initialize a project, and in there we'll go with tutor config save, local DC pool, that's just downloading all the images, and then dev launch, which initializes it, and then dev start to actually get the project running. We will run that in a moment. In my console, so you can see it working. Now I have to move the slide, but let's go back to it. So, yeah, I think I've been talking about this same overarching issue for the last 7 conferences, and that is how to extend the platform without making it impossible to maintain, without making it difficult to like continue upgrading to the latest version. In general, how not to lose your mind while writing custom code and creating awesome extensions. That's just like eternal. And the last thing we came up with, that was like 2 years ago, was the hooks framework, which was a big discussion. We made it into an OAP. A lot of people in the community contributed amazing ideas, and we actually had some like a back and forth that made the code so much better. And I'm very happy with the solution that ended up in the platform. And this is for you if you have ever had one of these challenges. You want to do something amazing, but then could not do it because if we do this, then we will not be able to upgrade to the next time. Or if you did it and you could not upgrade the next release, or you couldn't jump back to master if you wanted, or even if you're just planning to do it in the future. So welcome. As I said, this has been in the works for 2 years or a little bit more. Last year, it was a conference talk, a regular talk. We didn't do it live, but this was the slide that I think explains it in the shortest way. Basically, we have sets of places in the code before and after important actions where you can go in and hook your code, hook your actual feature. So we'll do it before a user registers and after the user registers. We'll do it before the user enrolls in a course, after the user enrolls in a course. There's a little distinction there, by the way. Something that happens before is normally called a filter, and it lets you break stuff up. Like say, don't continue, stop in the tracks. And something that happens after is an event, and it mostly notifies you and lets you write code that will take that action. Oh, wait a sec. Yep, it lets you take that action into something else, a different microservice, a different platform altogether. I don't know, notify, send emails, whatever you want to do after an action is done. And this ties really nicely with the latest discussions about what is core and what is not in the platform. And this basically draws the line. So the hooks framework is written in the core, but it lets you do things from outside of the core. So it is one of those extension frameworks in yellow there in the corner. Just like XBlock, it lets you go and extend without having to touch or modify the core. From last year to this year, there have been some updates. We have more filters, 2 new filters contributed by someone in the team at OpenCraft. Thank you very much. And a whole new category of events, things that happen after the authors publish or change courses. So, and there are more coming up like all the time. When you get the slides somewhere after the conference, there are 2 links to the official indexes, and there's a slide with a lot of links at the end. But here we get a look at the kind of events that, or the kind of places that we're looking up that we can connect code to. Things like the student registration was requested. So a user is waiting in line to get registered at the platform, or is waiting in line to log into the platform, or enrollment started before the actual enrollment code is run, before the unenrollment code is run, and so on and so forth. The same goes with events that's after the fact. So the certificate was created or changed or revoked. And these are the kinds of things that we're looking at. So let's see if we can get this to work. We will need a tutor, naturally. A working tutor dev environment. That's the slide that we had before. TVM is optional. I recommend it, but it's optional. And there is this repository here. It's at the edX account in GitHub. It's called Tutorial Hooks Conference. All the code that will be written here is at that repo, and we'll see it in a moment. And it's conveniently tagged by the steps. So any steps in these slides will have a corresponding tag to that repository, so you can try it later on. Or if you ever want to develop your own set of hooks or your own set of extensions, you can take this as an example, if you will. Should be good. So I'm stepping down a little moment and say, this is what, as a developer, I usually get. It's I don't want to call it a crazy requirement, but a requirement that comes from someone that's not very well used to the platform, and just say something like, we have a university partner or organization partner that wants their courses for their own students. They want to publish them in the global platform, but they want to have special rules of access. No other students should even know the course exists. All right, it's a open courseware platform, but still, okay, whatever business rules. But users will enroll on their own. And then conflicts start to form in my head every time I get something like this, because it's like, I can close it down, but completely, but not partially. And then they throw in a last thing, like, we want to make this be, I don't know, a copy of the enrollments must be at a Google Sheet somewhere. And then my developer head starts aching, because that's a bunch of things that we cannot maintain in an easy fashion. I'll try to put it a little bit more nicely and tidy. We want to modify the course about page, and that's the setup for this. That's the mission for today. We want to modify the course about page. So for some organizations, but not others, well, by organization, I mean the org, that part of the course that's like org course run, that org, only some organizations will have the course about page hidden, but not completely. Only if their students, so someone with an email domain that matches some rule that we have, will be able to see that. Otherwise, they get redirected to courses. We want to make that at the front end bits, like the users should not be able to see it, but we also want to make it in the backend. Even if they know the link or if they are a little bit hackish, they cannot like override our rules. And then we want to create the record in Google Docs at the end. So let's jump into it. First, we want to have the tutor environment. For those that are joining in, the idea is that we will have the last line is basically the most important of them all. If you already have a tutor development environment running, just run tutor dev start, and you can -- skip build just so it doesn't build the whole MFE part, because we won't be needing that in this moment. So let's share I'll share my console and we'll try to make this work. Is the size big enough? Can you see it? All right. All right, so I'm gonna source this bit because I haven't sourced it yet, but I already built it. Activate. And then what I have is I have this 15.3.1 version of tutor running with my project. Tutor config save will ask me if I have, let's run that. It will ask me a bunch of stuff. If I am running a production platform, no, I am not. The name is tutorial, things are all right. And yeah. And this actually broke my tutorial because something that I can show you. This saves my config, but I need the link to be different to what it just automatically built it to. Okay. But that should be fixed. Okay, and then DC pool I already did. It just downloads the images. Dev launch initializes it, and I don't know if I can initialize it twice, so I'm not going to risk it. We'll just go to tutor dev start skip build. One trick that I like to use is I use the -d flag, so it's detached, and I attach from a second terminal. Oops. I'll show you how that works right now. I just split the terminal into two, and here I'm just going to attach. All right, so I can still run my commands here, but we get the console output right there. I'll just give it a minute for anyone that's running this step as well. And I already run this in this computer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete everything that I had here. The backup, the original one. Should be gone. Okay. No, no, it's not gone. Now it's gone. Now it looks better. All right. So the moment you're here, you should have step 0 running. And with some luck, and we can see this here, the platform should have, let's try that. It should be running. Let's log out. And I'll do a restart because I just deleted the code and I want the process to forget this code ever existed. Yeah. Now we are there. So we have a regular platform. That's actually where the tutorial starts. So there we go. Not now. Then step 1 is we actually want to have a place where we write the code. This is called an Open edX plugin. It's a separate repo. It's a Django app that auto installs in the platform. And that is what this repository is all about. By the way, here we have all the steps of the tutorial, and we're going to jump right after this post cookie cutter fix up. This was built using the edX cookie cutter repository, but then later on I fixed a bunch of like references and CI and whatnot. We needed this happening. So we'll back to the presentation. We'll clone it. But clone. It's not empty. Oh. There you go. And we have this. So we're at the step 1 of our tutorial. What we have here is just a cookie cutter, and then, as I said, just fixing up requirements, docs, whatnot. So that. Then ideally, this should work out of the box with just the one line, but I hit a bug with Docker Compose of how things are shared. And I was discussing it this morning with the responsibles for Tutor. And yeah, it's something that we need to fix in Docker Compose. But for now, we'll go around it by entering the container that is running. And in there, we will go to the place where this is installed. And we'll pip install. And after that, I disconnect from this and we'll do a restart again. So far what we are doing is just getting code to run in the platform that is not in the platform repository. It's outside of the platform repository. And that means we can use different tools of CI. We can basically not depend on the platform of code. It's already a lot easier to maintain than fork the platform. And we'll see if this worked. No. Yeah, I left a little message for us. Tutorial plugin is loaded right at the top. So that means this code that we're seeing here under requirements, this code is actually what is being loaded in the platform. And any changes we'll see happening here. So let's try that. I save, I should get auto reload. And just a minute later. Now we get the cool heart. So we're good. We can edit code now. So on to step 2. This is the only step that requires substeps. So now we're good. So what we want to make right now, back to our mission at the beginning, it was to change the course about page and change the way it renders, the way it works for all and any reasons. So what we will do is we'll make an empty filter and connect it. We're building on top of the progress that we're making. So first and first, we want an empty filter, an empty something that works. And for that, if you're just lazy, you can go and check out the code for step 2. But we'll go through what this does. It actually works like this. We will create a file called the pipeline. And in here, we will make one class that imports or inherits the pipeline step. And this pipeline step will get it from OpenEDX filters. This is already installed inside of the container, but for the code running outside, we can actually, and let's do that. We can create a virtual env here. Source it. So this is running inside of the container. This is running outside, which means this is more akin to CI. This is more akin to any environment that I can have in my own computer. And for this, will not for the one inside, because this was inside of the container, OpenEDX filters is already a requirement, but outside we will install it. And while that is happening, oh, sorry, we'll just create this function. And this function does nothing so far. It's a class that inherits the pipeline step, and it runs a filter that does nothing. It just logs something and returns the same. I could make it just return an empty dictionary, but I'm returning the exact same thing that was passed into it. And we'll need some logging. I think it's better like this. Okay. So this is an empty filter. This is what an empty filter looks like. We'll need to connect it though. So for connecting, we want this setting. It's called OpenEDX filters config. And this setting is a list of dictionaries. It's actually a dictionary of dictionaries. And the key is the name of the filter, the official name of the filter, which is like a fully qualified domain. It's the OpenEDX learning. It's in that context. It's the causal out, and it's the render started. And let's see, I think we flew through that, but I'll show you where you can find the links to all this. What? No, not playing. This is the list of all the filters that there are with their type. So you can hook to any of these actions by changing what I was just showing there, this setting. And this setting you can change that setting with anything. If you're used to changing settings via YAML files, then change them via YAML files. If you're used to change them in the JSON file, do so. If you're used to writing tutor plugins for changing settings, it's all just a setting. So we want this with the type, and inside of that, we will throw in the configuration for that. So I don't want it to fail silently. Probably in production, I would want some of them to fail silently. That means no errors, no matter what happens in the code, the platform is still working. And I want the pipeline. That means I could put several steps in here and they would execute one after the other. For now, I'm only planning to use one, but this works in a pipeline fashion. Whatever comes out of the first one will be passed down to the second one and to the third one. And only after they are all run, it comes back to the place where the hook is triggered. So I put this tutorial hooks pipeline only visible for email domains, which is our case here, only visible for email domains. And this class requires that we define or that we implement. If we didn't, it would show an error, a function call or a method called run filter. That requires some context. And an easy way to know what's what is to come here to this list and what are we doing? Course about render started this. So I can see what's being passed from the platform. Well, this link is not pointing to a right place. Out. I can go to a platform code, and this is fairly stable. And I can see what is being passed to those templates in the version that I'm in. So this is in the platform sys Maple, and it hasn't changed, but I could have written a filter that it runs stably in Maple, in Nutmeg or Olive, and now Palm. They all will have it. And so I know that my extension is stable for all of those versions, and I can just upgrade it by doing like just changing the version. I don't need to go and redevelop anything. So you can always go to look at the code. Oh, let me make this a little bit bigger. You can always go to the code and see exactly what's happening here. You can also see that the OpenEdX filters library, or you could see it in the documentation. I think this points to this will point to the place in the library OpenEdX filters where you can see the actual definition of them. So back to our running code. All this to say that when we, let's go. I'm going to go to the /courses, and I will try to access the demonstration course demo, the demo course page. And we will see here that we have this log. The pipeline step is being executed. That means for rendering this page, I executed my code. And I haven't touched the platform yet. So I am not running into forking. I am not running into this will break the test. I need 2 hours of setup to run the CI. I am doing only one function, but it's connecting, it's being injected into the correct place. And with that, we have triumphed in the step number 2. Step number 2, which was to have a filter and connect it. So now we can do things with that code. And let's see. We will try to do this as if it was test-driven development. So we will include the unit testing first, and then we'll implement the filter later. And I'm not going to write the codes in directly because I suck at writing tests, and probably I would fail. But we can see what that would require. And I'm just going to check out this tag. Yeah, release. Sorry? The question is, if you enroll in the course, I will get something into Zapier, right? Yes, but that's like step 8. So we are still building towards that. But yeah, definitely, we will. Yes, we will. You're faster than me, then. Okay, so we're back on track here. And by switching the code to that next step, what I got was a test pipeline file. Yeah, just a test pipeline file that has a test that I can run from outside of the platform without having to load all the requirements and all the, basically all the dependencies from the edX platform. I can mock the settings so that I connect my pipeline step individually to that particular filter, and then I can write my tests. And I'm not testing much here, just making sure that An assertion is raised when I don't want the people to see the page, so that a redirect to page exception will be launched for denied users, and for allowed users, nothing will happen, like no redirection will be raised. This is a simple test, but it's very powerful. It lets me know that my code is stable, that I have actually not broken anything by upgrading to Olive or Palm, which is in itself amazing. It makes you secure that you can go and change stuff and not have to redevelop it 2 months later. And the way that looks is that I should be able, not only from the platform, which is in itself should run, but from outside of the platform, I should be able to run, I don't know, make requirements. I should be able to make requirements there, which will install a bunch of CI tools. And after it does, I can run my tests from outside of the platform. And this, for the example, it will take it a minute, but in the meantime, I can show you. This actually runs in CI in GitHub. And that's exactly what this X here is showing, that when it ran my tests, one of the tests failed. The redirect to page was not raised because remember, we haven't actually implemented anything. We are testing it even though the pipeline itself has no code. But we will see this here. If I just run PyTest directly, yep, I don't have the redirect to page. So this is the second big success. We can run tests without having to install all the dependencies. And that takes us to step number 4, which is actually do something. Let's do what we came here to do. I will just copy it as well from here. So what we'll do is from the context, we will pull up the course and look at the org. If the org's not in a list that we want, and we need that list, and I'll make this feature work for the demo organization. Yeah, so if the course is not in that list, we'll return, we'll do nothing. But if the course is in that list, then we will get the current request, get the user from that, and for that we need to import from here. No. And we'll look at the domain for that user. And I'm doing a simple comparison here, just getting the email user and look at the domain. If the domain is in allowed domains, if I was, or if you were developing this for real, probably a regex would make more sense. But, or even not having a list here, a fixed list of courses, but actually read it from the course as well. You can do here what you like. This is actually your code, or should be your code. And if the user is allowed, then just return again. Don't filter anything. But if the user is not allowed, then at the end, we'll raise the exception that says, don't do what you're doing, redirect me to a new page. And this should work. So let's actually see this here first. Course our render started is not defined. That means we haven't imported it here. And this is my only dependency. Well, I can have more, but this is my only necessary dependency, open edX filters, which is a tiny library. You can run the test for this in like 30 seconds. And it's a very stable library, and it's a very actively maintained library. So it's a safe bet. And with this, let's go into this. I can't go, but this is because actually I am going and I'm getting redirected. So let's sign in. As a student, my university. And when I go there in the context of, I didn't sign in. Why? Certainly. I think this has to do with the what I saved first. When I first saved the context. Yeah, domain is local overhang. Let's go over there. Much better. So when I go there, now I can view the course because now my student has the correct domain, and we'll mess up that, like change the allowed domains list so that once it reloads, it again doesn't like me going there. And if I try it once more, then it takes me to courses because I'm preventing it from the front end, from the browser's perspective. And that's basically it. That's a working filter. And I could have this updated to Palm in no time because I am actually doing nothing that requires upgrading. It's just I upgrade and it works. Now, the problem with this is that I could still enroll if I knew the link, if one of my classmates passes me the link where the actual enrollment is happening, something that's called like enrollments action enroll, then I could enroll, but we don't want that. So we can do, I'll reset here. So that we're going with the tutorial steps. So what I can do for that is just the same as I created the course about render started plugin hook. I could go and make one for enrollment requested and actually make the blocking there, the backend blocking, which is what the step 5 does. It's about the same. I add a new filter. And I say, not only I want the course about render filter to like block students from seeing the course, but I want the course enrollment filter to also block the courses. And for this, we will make a new filter here in the pipeline. So now we have two filters. Second filter does the same. It's a class that inherits from pipeline, runs the filter, and it does all the same. It looks in special orgs to see if the course key, if the organization is the correct, and then it checks the email. And I probably would refactor these two into just one function, so I don't write the same code twice, but it doesn't matter. The important part is, if I don't want the student to be able to enroll, then I raise prevent enrollment. And that ties in with test cases just as much. So I can go to my tests and write a test for this. Oh, enrollment started will be filtered by enrollment by email domains. And if my user is not allowed, it should raise the prevent enrollment thing. Let's see if this works. If I run the test now, it would probably fail because I'm not importing the enrollment started filter here. And I should be able to run. No. Tutorial hooks pipeline does not define this. Okay. Save, and we need this as well. And just as before, I can run my code testing, my unit testing here in a separate repo. That's what we would see in all of these subsequent runs. I get QA in my own repo, like self-contained. And I won't have much to show for this because basically what is happening is, even if I was trying to hack it, I could not, because the actual enrollment phase won't happen. If I'm enrolling via an API, it won't happen. It's the same filter stopping me in one place and the other. But this makes my feature both secure and maintainable, which is amazing. That's basically what we have in this step 5, which I will reset to keep up with the tutorial. This was a step 5 already. So it was a new filter, and we were including testing already. Very similar to the first part. But then to finalize the feature that we wanted to build, that our fake product manager asked for us, we will also do the second part, what happens after the user enrolls. And for this, we will connect the receiver. This is the second part, what goes after the enrollment happens. So these parts, these bits are filters. They all happen before an action is taken by the platform. Go ahead. Yes. Great question. So Andres is asking, I can return, like I am getting some arguments in my filter call, namely the context and in this case the template name. But sometimes I have other things like users or the course key or the mode or whatnot. The filter steps are inspired in the Django auth pipeline system. That means every time I return something that is not a dictionary, it will fail. I can raise an exception and it will fail in a controlled way, doing exactly what I want. Or I can return I can return a dictionary, which means it will pass and it will be okay. whatever I pass in this dictionary will be updated in a dictionary that contains the input. So if I'm not changing absolutely anything, I can just return an empty dict and it will be the same as nothing happening in the filter. Or I can return a dictionary that contains the keys of what I want to update. So I could get the user, which is a Django user, and I could return something from these, I don't know, objects, and I could find, I don't know, get by ID, or I could find a different user and return it in the same key. And this is what will be passed to the platform. So the filters are actually a way in which I can inject like my complete user. Or yes, you can. You could, for instance, here, you could take this context and you go to the template and you see that there's a, I don't know, a flag that says it's allowed to enroll, and it's normally true. You can make it to false, and then you can modify bits of the page that you would otherwise need to go and comprehensive theme it into will. You can just switch the variable that you want. Sorry? The question is, do they work like WordPress filters? They work exactly like WordPress filters. Actually, WordPress filters is what inspired us to do this. The question is if the trick is to raise those exceptions. And yes, that is the trick. You can go, because you can always read the code that you have upstream. So you come, you come here and you see you are running the filter, but then you are getting erased either render invalid cursor out or redirect to page or render a custom response. And you will see that most filters have like maybe a long or a short list of things you can respond to differently. And you could have this with many different types of responses. And that's what you can inject. That's where you can inject your feature into. Where are these exceptions defined? Yes, they are defined in the filters library. So if you go from the same index that we had, I was looking at the date added column, which takes me to the place in really near the place where this code is implemented in the platform. But if you take this link, it will take you to the Open edX filters library, where I can see what kinds of different exceptions are returned by this. So sometimes I have one, or I might have many different exceptions, depending on what this filter is sort of allowed to change in the platform, if that's the correct way to describe it. And then I can see here, I can either prevent the enrollment or prevent the unenrollment. Maybe your users cannot leave a course until they have reached a certain grade, or that is true for all of them. Okay, so back to the tutorial line. I was just resetting this so that we are done with the filters part. That is everything that was happening before the execution of the action, say enrollment. But now we also had this mission to get a live list using Google spreadsheets of who has enrolled where. Maybe it's not a list. Maybe you want to send them a welcome email. Maybe you want to notify the instructor. I don't know. The possibilities are endless. So now we're switching into the after the fact part. And this has a bit of a different architecture, because it needed to be, we wanted to optimize for something else, which was, we wanted to optimize for robustness. A little bit of risk is still in the filters. The signature of the function is very stable, but maybe you are looking at a variable in the context that will be present for one version, but not for the other. this could happen. Like if someone took away part of the template and you were counting on that part of the template not to change and it changes, it might be unstable in that regard. But for events, since you're not able to modify anything because events is just like information is being broadcasted, you can do so, you can do with it what you need, but you're not feeding anything back into the platform. So there we wanted to optimize for robustness. And what that means is we have built a separate library called OpenEdX events. And the events, they have zero chance of failing without you noticing it. If you are running tests, then you have the exact information that you will receive in production. And that looks like this. We were configuring the filters as this variable, OpenEdX filters config, and we would connect them here. Events, on the other hand, are configured as a signal, which means that events are also passed to the event bus, which makes you be able to read them over Redis streams or whatever you're using if you are configuring the event bus system. And you configure them here in the plugin app. Basically, you add here a different setting that's called, let's see. Signals config. And in this dictionary, you will just pass some context that says, I want the OpenEdX events, learnings, signals, course enrollment created, be connected to my function, whatever my function is. So I'm going to, in this relative path receivers, I am going to create something very simple. Use the same logger, my function, and I'm saying just putting some log for my own message. And once an enrollment happens, and I will enroll and unenroll from this a few times. I am enrolled already. So when I'm enrolled, I will get a, well, I should get a log saying that I enrolled. Let's try that again without all this. Wait, did I say? Now I get it here. The receiver for course enrollment created is working. That means, same as before, that I get my code running in the platform without changing a line of the platform. It's just connecting from this setting right here into my receiver function, which is also amazing. And then from there, I can do whatever I want. I think my example continues by setting up a test, and we'll do that right now. To reset there, because I don't want to type all this in. but we'll look at this code. So I have a test receiver that what it does is it sets up all the data that I would get in my event, and the data that's being passed. Before in filters, we had like the real user object in memory being sent. Here we are optimizing for robustness. So what we're sending is we're sending attribute classes, ATTR classes that have like fixed data. And this I can change, and I cannot even create test data that looks like it without being it. So I'm just passing primitives, few strings, numbers, things that can be easily serialized. The exact same thing that's being sent on the event bus. So I could, from the long perspective of I am creating an extension that I'm just experimenting with, I can create it as an event. And then maybe a few months from now, I recognize that this is something big enough that requires, or that is warrants having a microservice that will consume it from the event bus. So I can migrate to that in the future. And in my, this was just a test. In my receiver, I still have nothing. And when I try to test it, I need to install yeah. I get tested for this. I'm not doing much in this event. I'm just connecting here. If I wanted, let's fail the test by doing something that should be like, I don't know, I'm gonna fail badly, like a syntax error. And the moment I try that, it will fail because my test is actually being run and it doesn't like that I don't know how to write Python. But then let's see how we would implement the business logic there. What I will do is in my receiver, I'm going to first get some information from the envelope. That is the metadata that any event has. And the envelope has things like what was the date time of this event, what was the specific type of the event that was sent, or it even has the ID of the container in Docker that was running this, or if you're running in a regular server, the local host, the host of that server. And I'm getting that and I'm posting it to Zapier with something. This is a hook that I previously created. Let's delete my log and let's import requests. Let's give it a minute. No module name L. Where did I? Ah, thank you. Right. So for this, what I did was I previously went into Zapier. And I created a SAP that, this one, that will receive anything that I post to this URL and do a little transformation in it and will write it to a Google Sheet. This one. So anytime you post, if yeah, those two, I have no idea where they came from. So probably from someone running the tutorial. I kind of delete all that. And the moment I enroll, this should be run, and then my signal will be called into existence. My Zapier hook will be updated with the data, and this will in turn put my ID in my container and the whole shebang right there. In the meantime, I haven't touched one line of code from the platform. My code, my weird business rules are safe, testable, and quality should be assured. With unit tests and all that. So to recap, what we did was we created an OpenEDX plugin that was an empty plugin. In there, we created 3 functions that run custom code, and we unit tested those functions, probably linted those functions, and wrote all sort of, I don't know, we used test-driven development to write those functions, and then we publish them into a repository that can be used to maintain a set of extensions. And if you want some more information of that, I will be happy to take questions anytime now, at any point in the conference or later on. And I leave here a bunch of lists and links to places where this is documented. This is talked of in previous conferences. Yep, and that's it. Thank you. If you have questions, if you want to run through any of the code that was working or failing, if you want me to go to your computer and look at something, you want to connect here and present, I don't know. Sorry? The slides, yes, for sure. Kyle, you know where the slides will be published? So the conference will publish the slides at some point. I think previous years have been published in Confluence. So I suppose that would be the case as well. So and over here, yeah. You want Sure. Yes. Hi. Yeah. So advice on how to document pipeline steps. Oh, I would say as much documentation as you can written for the one that's configuring them. Not so much for the developer, because the developer will read the code and know what's what, but the user that I find has the most trouble with this is the one that's just putting the configuration. So he or she needs to know who, like, what goes before what. Like, don't run this step before that other step is. And that's something you can test. Sorry, I'm gonna take the slide again. Oh, that's something you can test here. Because right now I'm just configuring the one step individually, but you can put them in the line and say, like, this is the order you have to document them. Like, this is the order you have to install them in. So you could use that to sort of like live document, like the tests are running and this is the way to go. That would be my take. So available hooks for certificates. Yes, let's see. I would say filters, you have two certificate creation requested. This is right before the certificate object is created in the database, kind of like a pre-save hook, but within the logic of the code. And certificate render started, that would be a filter for when you're actually presenting it. Imagine you have a complex template and you want to fill in some information in the context, you could use that. That's for filters and events. You have three. It's either after it was created, after it was revoked, or if anything changed. So if you are connecting to this, I would probably try to connect both created and changed, because you want to run your event like not only the first time, but subsequent times if something changed, if the grade was updated or whatnot. I'll repeat the question for the call, but is it possible to prevent the creation of the certificate? Yes, absolutely. It's possible in this certificate creation requested. Notice that we use the word requested or started because it's the way of saying like, this is about to happen or this is happening at the moment, but you can still affect it and you can still prevent it from happening. So you could go to this creation requested, and I am absolutely sure that it has a certificate creation requested. Certificate creation requested, it has a prevent certificate creation field exception. So you raise this, probably passing some message so that you know why it was prevented, and there you go. You can pass a message, and we tried our best to have this like connect all the hoops into at least getting to the browser, not necessarily being shown, but you could pick it up with JavaScript. But you might find that something changed in the API and the message is not being passed. If you do ever find that, make a PR that connects it, tag me in, and I'll make sure that it gets like, properly connected. I saw a hand. Sorry, you and then. So how would you make a new filter? That's the question. Okay, so these classes are relatively simple. They mostly inherit from this OpenEDX filter, OpenEDX public filter. And that's what you need. You just need a class that does this. So I've seen, like officially, you should open a PR to this repository, create your filter, have it merged, then update the version, take that version, update it in the platform, and use it. I don't say that this is a good way to go, but yeah, exactly. You could, in the same code, like you could right here at the platform, you already have the place where you want to do it. You could define this class right at the top and just import from public filter, implement your class, and use it immediately. Yes. You could even do this, and we use this pattern to get one merge that was at edX platform. We created the filter, created the implementation of the filter, and used it in the same file. And once we worked out the kinks and ironed out the details, then we said we need this filter defined at the library. And then we slowly extracted that into the library, then updated the version and removed the local implementation for the remote implementation. And then it was good for everyone. Yes, you literally just build a class. Exactly. And Gesan, yeah, yeah. Yes. So the question is, if the typical use case, if you want to change the behavior, the normal behavior of the platform, And yes, I would say that's a typical case. You can connect, there might be a feature where you're connecting to different filters and events at the same time. So you want to alter what happens before and after an enrollment or before and after a certificate creation. Say, for instance, you want to have, before a certificate is created, you want to check that this student is, I don't know, up to date in payments with their university. You could do that, but then you could also, after that, after the certificate is created, also connect to the certificate created event and do something back that perhaps allow the student to go to the next course in the line. So you can make complex features that tie to more than one place in the platform. Yes, that's also true. You could have events, you could have places where you connect to a filter and you don't want to change anything, but this is the, let's say, more correct place to do what logic externally. Yes, that could happen as well. You don't necessarily need to alter anything in memory for connecting to a filter. That's good. Anything else? We're good to go. We can still do debugging time. I can get you this computer that's already running and won't touch it, and it should continue running. That's good. Yeah. Well, we can stay here and